Hey everyone, welcome to the Go-Getters. If you weren't aware, Milwaukee's first ever Startup Week is this coming Tuesday, November 1st, and we have the perfect guest here today. He is the founder and CEO of Startup Milwaukee, the founder of The Commons, the founder of Skills Pipeline, Milwaukee's sex symbol, Matthew Cordio.
Thanks for having me, Richie.
I wasn't done with the intro. I haven't finished my notes. I interrupted. I was just going off the top of my head.
All of those are true statements.
Was very excited to just very excited to have you in the building. He also got showered with honors and awards in 2015, the Bravo Entrepreneur Award from the Biz Times and the Business Journal's 40 Under 40. I'd like to officially welcome you to the show.
Thanks for having me, Richie. I am super excited to be here talking about Startup Week.
Let's do it. Okay, can you touch on the evolution of Startup Milwaukee as an organization? We both went to Marquette. I know you started it recently after that. If you kind of want to talk about the evolution and how it got to where it is this coming week.
Yeah, so I'm a super senior from Marquette. So in my last semester of senior year, I was getting a little restless after starting a startup company. In my junior year, I kind of came to the realization there wasn't really a technology startup community in Southeast Wisconsin. There wasn't a place where we could exchange ideas as entrepreneurs and find resources. And being a tech entrepreneur, I think, is kind of unique to the Midwest, and we hope to change that, obviously, with Startup Milwaukee. But back in 2011, myself and about 5 other entrepreneurs came together. We started just getting together for beer, talking about our challenges, and our crowds kept growing because we were giving away beer for free, maybe, or because we were providing value to the community. And we just kind of have continued to grow and host different types of events. We've run different initiatives like a co-working space, 96 Square, that we ran for about 2 years. That was home to about 20 companies. We got involved and started The Commons, which is an entrepreneurial skills accelerator program that's teaching students around Southeast Wisconsin how to start up or work on innovation challenges or internal startups at major companies in the area. So, we've kind of had our hands in a lot of things. And one of the things that we've realized is Startup Milwaukee can't do it all. And I don't think we ever set out to do it all. And there are a lot of great organizations that are out there to help entrepreneurs in Southeast Wisconsin. And some of them, I think, don't get the attention that they deserve. And so hence why we threw together Startup Week. So Startup Milwaukee is not actually even hosting an event during that week. We rely on the network of partners in the community that we've built. We have over 30 of them hosting close to 30 events in that 6-day time frame. So it's been fun.
And how did you pull it all together? Were you reaching out to people, trying to get them to host events? How was the support for that?
Yeah, so
you have a great lineup.
Yeah, and so my co-organizer, Ed Javier, and I kind of came up with the idea out of another Startup Milwaukee event, which is a book club that meets every other month or so. And, we heard from that group that, people are looking for resources in Milwaukee's startup community, and they don't necessarily know where to find them. So one way that we thought we could do that was by bringing them all together and putting on a week full of events. And fortunately, being around for 5 years, Startup Milwaukee's been really fortunate to build a network in the community of organizations that understand that we're here to help raise awareness of them and help build the startup community that is here and growing. And so it came together pretty quickly. It's awesome that we don't have to host a single event during the week. We have, organizations from Beloit, Iron Tech, which is down in Beloit, Wisconsin, to the Golden Angels in Brookfield and Waukesha County, to larger community organizations in Milwaukee like Generator and Milwaukee hosting. Some are hosting 2 or 3 events during the week. So we're excited for the momentum that we've built.
Overall, what are you most excited for this week?
I think it's drawing attention to the importance of startups. If you look at the data, Milwaukee doesn't rank very well in terms of the metrics that we use to judge startup activity. And,
it does rank ahead of Pittsburgh.
Yes.
That's the only metropolitan area.
Yes.
We'll get to that,
40,
though. That was a question, but carry on.
So it's, important that, we really celebrate the entrepreneurs that we have in the community. There's some research from the Kauffman Foundation on entrepreneurship that when you look at net job creation in the United States, all of it comes from new ventures that are growing. That's where net new jobs in the economy come from. So, when you look at that, if a region is not ranked very well, Milwaukee, as you mentioned, was 39th out of the top 40 metro areas in terms of startup activity in 2016. We need to draw attention to that. And, we hope to have a constructive conversation about that. That's actually one of the events we have during the week, that we're bringing in a researcher from the Kauffman Foundation to explain, how they go about ranking entrepreneurial activity. And the Kauffman Foundation index, there's some in the community that have said, well, I have a problem with their methodology. But if you look at a lot of different entrepreneurial activity indexes, it doesn't matter if it comes from the Kauffman Foundation or Economic Innovation Group or insert think tank here, Milwaukee is never near the top. So, there is near crisis level situation in terms of the fact that we are not starting enough companies to grow jobs long term in Southeast Wisconsin's economy. And at Start Milwaukee, we're very passionate about trying to do something about it and host conversations about how to do that. So the Kauffman Foundation, when they're in town, are actually talking about best practices. And there are Midwestern cities. So a lot of people say, well, best practices are, let's go be like the Silicon Valley or Austin, Texas, or Seattle, Washington. They're actually best practices from other cities here in the Midwest. You look at Detroit, you look at St. Louis. Both of those cities have really done a ton to invest in their local startup communities and grow them. And I just find it, as a proud Milwaukeean, absurd that we can't do better.
Yeah. I agree. And I mean, it's kind of hard for me to chime in because I started my company here right after college, and I'm not engulfed in, I'm engulfed in the Milwaukee startup world, but I haven't gone to other cities and really seen what their startup cultures are like. I am aware of St. Louis, though. I know Gabe at a company called Locker Dome, which does very well down there, and he started their big hackathon, and that's really taken off. So if that city can do it, you would think Milwaukee could pull it off.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, St. Louis in particular, they have tons of programs. They have 5 accelerator programs that are ranked in that one city, which is about the same size as Milwaukee, same demographics. Right.
Maybe even smaller.
I think it may be a little smaller. And, the amount of startup activity happening there, they've really gotten it together. And the researcher from Kauffman that'll be here next week, Colin, he actually went to St. Louis and studied kind of the growth of the entrepreneurial community there, which has really happened in the past 5 years. So it'll be really fascinating.
Yep. And you've been getting a good amount of media attention the last week or two. Skills Pipeline, your other company, is covering travel expenses for other entrepreneurs around the Midwest. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. So that kind of falls into my belief that for the startup community to grow, individual entrepreneurs need to step forward and pay it forward to the entrepreneurial community. And I think you're doing it with this podcast series of highlighting interesting community leaders and entrepreneurs who are making a difference here in Milwaukee. Skills Pipeline, we announced a couple weeks ago that we're willing to pay talent from around the Midwest to come check out Milwaukee Startup Week. So Skills Pipeline, we work with growth-focused companies and startups, helping them identify top technology talent to help them, grow and continue to create value. So, we hope to definitely have success with attracting new people that might have ties to Milwaukee. I know a lot of people, like us, went to Marquette and maybe moved to Chicago or from the Chicago area, but have a connection to Milwaukee. So we want to bring them back here and show them the startup scene, connect them with companies that are interesting and might want to hire them.
Yep. How many people are you bringing up?
We're hoping to bring up to 50.
Nice.
So that's our goal. We'll see where we end up, but we really believe that we have a lot of great assets in the city, and we need to highlight them. And felt like this was an easy opportunity to do that during Startup Week.
Awesome. Okay, so we touched on this a little bit, but Wisconsin as a state ranks dead last in startups for 2 years running. Milwaukee's right at the bottom, just above Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And we took some questions from the fans on Facebook. I'd like to give a shout out to Dennis Genders, great guy.
Yeah,
he had a
Dennis.
question correlating with this. And he said, how can we help support the startup community? Reports continue to highlight the lack of funding and negatives with our current community, and I'd like to find a way to fix that. So why are we so low, and what's the solution?
Yeah, so there's no easy answer to this question. I think one of the things that we have to do, and I think that, we're doing it with this podcast, we're doing it with Startup Week, and, hopefully maybe we could borrow Dennis's PR skills and figure out how do we attract attention to the startup activity that's happening here and celebrate the successes. I mean, I have friends that have built companies. I look at a company that my friend started called Penrod Software. They've grown from 5 to 50 employees in about a year. And so to see that growth, we need to talk about it and celebrate it. Milwaukee, I think the media landscape in general, tends to focus on real estate, which there's nothing wrong with that. We all need cool places to, hang out and shop and eat and live. But I think the media could do a better job of telling the success stories of entrepreneurs who are building companies for the new economy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You look at Penrod and what Joe's done over there and that growth, and they made the Inc. 5000, right? Or they were the fastest growing company in that industry from Wisconsin, I believe, which is great for him. And I know that because I'm friends with a bunch of Penrod guys on Facebook, but you don't really see that in the local media. It's not
and it's time and time again, there are companies like Wannable.
Yeah, that's another great example.
4 years, 0 or 1 or 2 to like 50 plus employees. I can go on and on with stories of successful technology-focused companies that are growing and scaling here in Milwaukee, and we just need to get out and tell their stories because it's happening.
Yep.
And I think that would help encourage more people get into the startup community. I also think to talk about increasing investment activity and just kind of general startup activity, I think we could do more to highlight or attract entrepreneurs to Milwaukee. So there's a great program that I've been following for 4 years now out of St. Louis called Arch Grants. And Arch Grants pays any entrepreneur who wants to relocate to St. Louis and start their company there $50,000. It's a grant. So it's not equity, it's a grant, and they've built that. And so since it's been founded, It's created over 300 jobs in the St. Louis region. Those companies, I think it's about 80 companies they've given $50,000 grants to. Those companies have gone to raise an additional $170 million in venture capital. Wow. And they're generating revenues of about $20 million annually. So that's less than $10 million in grants. And running that program, that's had an outsized impact on the St. Louis entrepreneurial scene. So I think we need to think about how do we bring brains here or keep brains here too. Because one of my companies that I was fortunate to work with at Startup Milwaukee, a team of Marquette students started a company called FocalCast. They moved to St. Louis after they graduated, and they actually recently received an Arch grant. So
did anyone try and keep them here, or they just?
So they left to join one of the other accelerator programs that's in St. Louis called Capital Factory. So. I think there is, an underserved need of. I think we have a lot of capital going into later stage and available for later stage investments. We need to really figure out how do we get more seed investments happening here in Southeast Wisconsin, and more importantly, the money is important, but it's really building a network of resources and having a team of people that I think have the skill to help a company go and raise that seed funding and continue to grow. And so that type of network is not easy to build. The Arch Grants people, they pay, so it's a nonprofit, but they pay market rate, and they compensate their people like venture capitalists. And I think in Milwaukee, if we want to have a program like that, we have to think about how do we, think like a business, and when we're starting nonprofits, and continue to, do that, and I think we'll see some increased startup activity.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of negative attention in this community regarding the startup community. What makes you optimistic?
I think it is those success stories like Wannable, like Penrod, another company I work with, Crescendo Collective. There are just companies and entrepreneurs out there that are growing technology companies in Southeast Wisconsin that their stories aren't told. And I think that it's interesting too, and it goes back to a lot of how the public's perception is shaped of the startup challenge. And I think that if the only stories that we tell, which are easy stories to write, which is Milwaukee ranks 39th out of 40th in entrepreneurship, or Wisconsin ranks dead last in startups, those are easy stories to write because Kauffman Foundation will send you a press release, and you can throw it up online in 10 minutes. It's a harder story to go figure out how Joe Taylor went out and his partner Chris Widmar went out and figured out how to build their company Penrod from 5 to 50 employees and make the Inc. 500 list, in 3 years. Yeah,
and you look at what a guy like Dom's doing too, and he just raised $1 million.
Rank College Pads is another.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, Dom, great guy, and he's bootstrapped a lot of that growth
out of 96 Square, your workspace.
Yeah, and he's a great example, I think, of funding is not the major issue. I think it's you need to find
there is money here.
Yeah,
right?
and you really need to there really need to be programs that help entrepreneurs access more customers at an early stage and provide them the resources, like helping them connect with the money here. And I think we'll see a growth in the startup community.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to get into some questions from the fans. Thank you everyone who chimed in on Facebook. So some of these are just getting to know you as a person, as Matt Cordio.
I'm afraid.
The others are regarding Startup Week, but our first one's from Kyle Wilcom, actually a guest on the show. How did you get the nickname The Banca?
Oh, that's a funny story, and I'm glad Kyle wanted to go there. So one night, I think Richie and I and Kyle, we were all at the bar, and it's one of Kyle's favorites, and he didn't have any money to tip the waitress, so I had to unfortunately, tip for him, and I believe you too. I think you forgot your wallet. So
I don't think I did, but that sounds like a typical Wilcom move to just forget his wallet and have other people pay for him.
Yeah. He's used to getting tips himself with his guitar playing.
He could have just walked outside on the street and started singing and probably racked up a cool $20 in a few minutes. But
he could have. That's the type of friend he is. Yeah, freeloading.
just Kyle Wilcom, just freeloading. Okay. Hopefully he's changed since then. Saw him about a month ago. He seemed to be doing well. He's got an album coming out, so
he avoids me when he's back. Around Milwaukee. I think that
maybe he's gotten a little too big for you. Do you think that could be it?
I think it's that, or he remembers that he owes me still from that night.
Either way. Okay. And now we have a question inspired by Joe Taylor from Penrod. By the way, Joe, open invitation to come on the show. All right.
I nominate him officially. Joe, you're next.
That is an amazing endorsement. Okay. What are organizations that typically represent the business community, like the GMC and the MMAC, doing to actually help the startup community here in Milwaukee?
That's a great question for them. I think they could be doing more. But if you look at just the business model of a business community organization, they're there to serve members, and typically it's a little bit expensive for a startup to belong to the local chamber or civic group. Startups are probably underrepresented by those groups, and that's probably why Start Milwaukee has gained a large following of thousands of people interested in startups and worked with hundreds of startups here in Southeast Wisconsin. I do hope to highlight a model that I think is working, and it's if a civic organization decides to step up and support the startup community, I think they can be successful, and that model is the Madison Chamber of Commerce. So a guy named Zach Brandon, who's the president there, he's been president for I think only a few years, and he's taken a radical approach. And you see Madison is ranked consistently as a great city to be a technology entrepreneur in. It's definitely got a emerging startup scene that is supported by local organizations and the local corporate community, like American Family Insurance and Madison Gas and Electric. They've put a lot of money into the startup community in Madison.
What's that building going up there?
Starting Block.
And that was American Family
and Madison Gas and Electric, I think, as well as other companies that are paying to lease in that building too.
Scott Resnick's involved in that, right? Yeah.
And so Madison has got it together and figured out how to get the corporate community and the startup community to coexist and actually help each other out. You look at American Family and American Family Ventures, they're investing in Wisconsin companies that are creating jobs in Wisconsin and helping them rethink their business. Mm-hmm. I think that the corporate community in general could do more to connect with the local startup scene here.
Yep.
We have quite a few events throughout the week. As I mentioned, Zach Brandon, the president of Madison Chamber of Commerce, he's going to talk about how Wisconsin is actually very, people think of Wisconsin as a manufacturing state. We actually have a large amount of people working in the technology and software industries. And so we're primed to take, advantage of, with our manufacturing expertise, as well as our technology expertise, take advantage of the next wave of technology innovation. And so he's going to talk about that during Startup Week at an event we have on Wednesday, November 2nd, called Building a Stronger Startup Community in Wisconsin. And he's also going to talk about his approach to running a Chamber of Commerce and connecting it with the startup community and the corporate community, which, I think if you look around the country, corporate, organizations and startups are getting closer and closer together. And I think we have an opportunity to do that here in Milwaukee because we have a lot of great companies. We have companies like Johnson Controls, Northwestern Mutual, Briggs & Stratton, etc. based here.
Some of those are kind of getting their toes wet in the commons, right?
They are, yes.
But yeah, and I mean, touching on Madison, I don't. I met Zach Brandon a couple weeks ago. I went to the Madison Chambers annual dinner. Mm-hmm. It was the first time I don't go back to Madison that much, even though I'm from there. But I was blown away. It seemed like they've got a lot of amazing things going on over there. So it's cool you're bringing him in. I would encourage people to go check that out for sure.
It takes leadership, and I think a lot of leadership, attention in Milwaukee's been directed towards building great amenities, whether it be the streetcar or the arena, or all the residential development that's happening downtown. And those are great things.
Yeah.
But I think it might be time to pivot towards looking at how are we going to create jobs that will create density in our urban center, the city of Milwaukee in particular. And I think those jobs, so if you create a technology job, there's research out there that says that for each technology job in the long term, it creates 4 additional jobs in the goods and services economy, from lawyers to retail clerks to school teachers. There are all kinds of jobs that are created by the growth of the technology sector. If you look at the same effect a manufacturing job has on a local economy, it only creates 1.4 jobs for each manufacturing job that's created. So, if we're looking to invest our economic development dollars wisely in the state, we need to look towards technology as the future of it, because I'm a business person and very metrics driven. We can get a 1 in 4 return on our money instead of a 1 in 1.4 return on our money. I think that it's a no-brainer where to invest in creating new jobs in the Wisconsin economy.
That would be, for sure. Okay, going back to Facebook, we got a few more. Jeff Stanley from Marquette University.
Hey, Jeff.
Where does Richie Burke rank golf handicap-wise in the Milwaukee startup community?
Well, he's definitely better than me. I've not golfed in several years, and I believe that you have hauled some trophies in over the summer that I've seen on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, wherever you can brag about your golf winnings.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Willie Boucher, another good friend, Marquette as well. I also went to high school with him. Lives in Milwaukee currently, and he asks, how valuable and useful has the qualified new business venture tax credit been for the startup community, or is it a non-factor?
I think it definitely has an impact. And so he's talking about the qualified new venture, business venture program that the WDC runs. And I think that, in terms of making a, encouraging, and I think it's maybe more useful for the investors than maybe the startups. But ultimately it trickles down. So he's talking about is an investor in a qualified new business venture that's based in Wisconsin can get up to 25% of the value of their investment as a tax credit. And I think that, encourages angel investors, high net worth individuals to continue to invest in startups. I think it could be raised. I think it would be interesting to maybe raise it to like 40 or 50% because, last year, not all those dollars were used. So let's figure out a way to, help out the people that are investing in the future of Wisconsin through startups. So maybe the legislature could look at raising the tax credit threshold to maybe 50%, or maybe they could loosen the restrictions on who qualifies to be a new business venture. But ultimately, I think in the long run, anything that helps incentivize investments in new Wisconsin companies is a good thing, and props to the WDC for doing that.
Awesome. That's all I got for you. Any closing words on Startup Week coming up?
We hope to see everyone there.
Should make it a lot of good events. I'm going down the schedule. Looks like 1,000,000 Cups Wednesday morning, Milwaukee Startup Speaker Crawl. The event I'm going to be gone for is that Friday night, the Go Live Startup Office Happy Hour Crawl with Penrod, Wannable, and Third Space.
Mobcraft, actually.
Mobcraft, excuse me.
And I think that's going to be...
Which was featured on Shark Tank.
It was. Another Wisconsin startup success story.
The one last question. I see Generator Premiere Night, invite only. Why did I not get an invitation to that?
Have to take that up with Generator.
Okay. Generator. After this episode comes out, I'm sure they'll probably shoot one over. Maybe pay me to
maybe send you a bottle of champagne too.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate what Generator's doing.
Yeah, they're doing an awesome job of getting entrepreneurs here to Wisconsin, and recently with their G Beta program, which they're doing G Beta is involved in a couple Startup Week events. They're now helping support college entrepreneurs who are getting startups off the ground here in the state of Wisconsin as well. So it's cool to see them on a roll. Hope to see y'all at Startup Week, November 1st through the 6th.
That's right. A lot of great things going on. Thank you so much for stopping by and bringing Startup Week to the community.
Well, thank you, Richie, for highlighting it.